In today's episode, I'd welcome your input on a couple of questions and also would love to have your prayers during an important week in the life of the church. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip the Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Good to be with you as always. We're still in the very early part of 2024, and in this week's episode, I'd like to invite your input about a couple of things and your prayers about something else. I'll come to the prayers at the end if you'll stick around. So the input has to do with sort of where God is calling us in the future, right? So we've been reflecting about the last year as the year has ended and as we are approaching our annual meeting, which, by the way, is Super Bowl Sunday. It's unrelated to the Super Bowl and will be done long before the Super Bowl, but it is on February 11th, Sunday the 11th at about noon following our third worship service, at which time we'll have a chance to talk a bit about all of the ways we should celebrate as a congregation what we've accomplished with God's help in 2023. And that means I'm sitting now with, well, where's God calling us next? And I'm thinking about that in a couple ways. First, in 2024. I mean, again, we're very early in the new year, and so we're sitting with that question. We always sit with that question, but the start of a new year is a good time to reflect on it. And so I would love your input about where you think God is calling us. I've talked before about sort of three main priorities of the church, which are to worship, to serve the poor, and to evangelize. I continue to think that those are a good framework for us to think about what we do. If you're not familiar with it, there's a weekly document we do called the Partners in the Gospel. We'll throw an image of it here and maybe link to it. That gives, on a week-to-week basis, a sampling of some of the ways we're growing and learning and being in fellowship with one another. It's not exhaustive, but it gives you a sample of the kinds of ways we're being called by God in any given particular week. So you might check that out. And again, I'd love your thoughts about, are we missing something? Is there something that you think we might want to do that we're not currently doing, that you feel God is calling us to? So I would welcome your thoughts and input about that. That's sort of this annual cycle. And then we're also in the last year now of our 3-year capital appeal cycle, which means we're actively thinking about the next 3-year appeal, which will start in January of 2025. And we will talk more about that this summer and this fall. But I'm also sitting along with our leadership team and our co-chairs for that appeal with the question of where is God calling us for that next 3 years? Typically, we've had some ministries or mission projects that we emphasize for those appeals. They've ranged from all over the world to closer at home. Right now, we're supporting, in this current 3-year appeal, 3 organizations, and we're doing more than that, but the 3 outside organizations are Mental Health Connect, which is a consortium of about 35 or 40 congregations in the Twin Cities focused on improving access to mental health. We're focusing on a project for affordable housing in North Minneapolis called Emerson Village, and we're also focusing on a really creative project for early childhood learning called Rise Early in a suburb near us that's, again, supported by a handful of congregations and just launched actually this month. So again, I would love your input about where do you feel God calling us maybe as a congregation in that next 3-year cycle as we sit with that question? So that's the input I'm looking for. And then the prayers this week, we just celebrated the baptism of our Lord on Sunday. That is always the week that we focus our attention on our 9th grade confirmation students. And so we blessed them in all of our services. We had a prayer of blessing in all of our services this weekend for them. Actually, tonight, the night we're taping this, we will have a very significant event called the Rite of Passage for them and their parents, which we hear from those students for years after they've gone through that, how meaningful it was for them. And then this coming Saturday, we'll have 2 services of confirmation or affirmation of baptism for those young people. And the prayer I would request of you is just to keep those young individuals and their families in your prayers. This week really is a major event in the life of the church. It's a reminder of how we are each called to pray for one another and to support one another in our own baptismal vows. And this week particularly, we lift up all of our ninth graders and pray for them as they begin this next chapter of their life in this community. So that's the episode for this week. I'm really grateful for your presence. I continue to wish you a happy new year. And until next time, be well, stay in touch, and God bless.